Good morning. Such a delight for me to be here amid this, I would call a glittering galaxy of eminent personalities. I want to compliment the association and my young friend, Feroz. I've known him for long years. I must claim, I can claim that I've in some sense mentored him, and he's putting up a grand show. I'm truly delighted. I guess I've been a part of this, Feroz, part of this event year after year over the last 5 or 6 years. I've been a part of this from the beginning. I just want to share over the next few minutes before we start grilling this wonderful panel. I want to share some research findings. There is an international research consultancy company called Mintel, and they sent me some report a few days ago on, I beg your pardon, global ice cream market. 2016 global ice cream sales amounted to 13 billion liters. And I think that's a massive, massive quantity. 13 billion liters of ice cream sales globally. But even a better part of that was Asia. The market size in Asia for ice cream is expanding rapidly, driven by India, driven by Indonesia, and driven by Vietnam. Therefore, as they say, the sun rises in the east. The ice cream market is now rising in the east, driven by India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. And this is not surprising at all because Asia has the world's largest population in terms of the continent size. 40% of the world's population is in Asia. And therefore, the markets are rising with rising GDP growth, rising incomes, rising disposable incomes, rising purchasing power. China obviously is the largest market, followed by the US and of course then by Japan. I found Norwegians are the largest consumers of ice cream. The per capita consumption of Norway is 9.3 liters a year, per person per year. And then when you compare that with India, it's so low that we have a huge opportunity for raising the per capita consumption within India. And one very special finding of this research report is that 4% of the launches of new ice cream that happened in 2016 were vegan ice creams. What is vegan ice cream? Vegan ice cream is non-dairy ice cream. And therefore, that market is probably catching up, but we still don't know whether this is going to be a trend over the coming years. And what's also important is that the Indian ice cream market over the last 5 years has been growing at 13% CAGR. And this 13% CAGR growth is certainly going to be sustained, and possibly this can even go up. And in terms of the actual number, 380 million liters was the consumption of ice cream in 2016. And this is going to rapidly expand over the next 5 years, an expansion of 60% over a 5-year period. And it can potentially touch something like 650 million liters. I think that will make for a massive expansion, that will call for massive expansion, not just in demand, but also we need to look at the supplies in terms of infrastructure, cold storage, availability of raw material, etc., etc. Therefore, demand is inevitable. Demand is there and is going to expand, but the industry will have to raise its own standards, its own investment, its own infrastructure to meet the upcoming demand. I think that's extremely important. What we also found was over the last 3 years, there are new launches of new flavors, particularly in the West. The Western markets are looking for novelty, and they're looking for new flavors. And we found, for example, green tea. We found saffron flavored ice cream. We have wasabi, of course. And then mango has always been popular in India, but mango is now becoming popular in the West. in countries like Canada and, of course, many of the European countries. So this is broadly the trend. Asia is rising in terms of, for the ice cream market, Asia is a big growth driver for the global ice cream market. And remember, as the numbers speak for themselves, our base is very low and we have a very long way to go. But the potential is there, and therefore it devolves on the ice cream industry of this country to rise to the occasion and capture the market opportunities. Then with these opening remarks, I want to open up the panel discussion. We have a wonderful panel, and I want to mention to the panelists and of course to the audience that the parlors are one significant drivers of growth in ice cream consumption and in ice cream demand. And parlors are becoming increasingly popular, not only across the world, but certainly within our country. Therefore, this session is going to focus on the role of parlors as drivers of demand for ice creams. And therefore, the questions that I'm going to ask, and I want you to start thinking about the answers for the benefit of delegates is, one, what do you think are the drivers of the Indian ice cream market in general? Although our session is going to focus on parlors, but what do you think are the general drivers of the Indian market? And how do you expect these drivers of the market to pan out over the next 3 to 5 year time frame? That will be one question. The next one is, of course, on parlors more specifically. Parlors as engines of growth in ice cream demand. What are the impediments that you see that could impede the growth of demand for ice cream sales through parlor route? And what should parlors be doing to attract more customers? I think these would be some of the questions. And as we go along, I'm sure more questions are going to come out. I would think that parlors are here to stay. Parlors are certainly expanding. They'll continue to expand. Parlors are drivers of demand. And parlors have a certain business model that ensures a certain sustained return and sustainable margins and sustainable returns. And therefore, there is that fantastic potential that parlors offer to the consumers and, of course, to the investors. Within this context, sir, may I start with you? Your thoughts on the market drivers for ice creams, and how do you see them panning out, and your thoughts for expanding the parlor business?
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. The ice cream market, in my opinion, I'm a parlor-driven company, but having been on the other side of the horizon as well, ice cream market is, the drivers are primarily, if you ask me, in the mainline companies, they are the dealer network. The push carts are a big driver. The institutional market is a very big driver. Weddings contribute very significant volumes to the mainline as well as the other companies. And parlors, of course, are one such driver. If you actually look at the total volume generated, I reckon that parlors don't really contribute volumes and numbers in terms of rupees. But yes, they are the brand showcases for companies in a way, and they will continue to be so. I'd like to now pass on the other.
Perfect. Yeah, please. Perfect.
See, for natural ice creams, 98% of the sales comes through the parlor format. So 2%, like Anurag ji said, we have institutional orders like party orders or wedding orders. For us, we have been a traditionally parlor business, and and we see immense potential in growing your business, ice cream business through parlors, for one big reason, because it still has a nostalgic feeling to it. Like, you know, if you ask any consumer who has had ice creams before, and if you ask them about what was your earliest memory of having an ice cream, they will always gonna say that, yes, my first ice cream experience was with the family going to a particular parlor. And that culture is still very much inbred in Indian tradition of eating ice creams or celebrating occasions with the family and friends. So we still get customers in huge group. And one noticeable difference in last couple of years I've seen is the young urban customers who are willing to spend, who are not price conscious about whether your ice cream pricing starts from 10 rupees or 150 rupees or even 500 bucks in certain premium multinational brands. So there has been a lot of looking forward to that eating out culture, which ice cream also plays a very significant role. And with the rise of disposable income, we are benefiting, the parlors are benefiting a lot.
I think I'll request our young friend.
Yes, so I think previously we've all heard how ice cream is being seen as an instrument for spreading happiness. So probably on a lighter note, what I feel that whenever there will be negative sentiment, ice cream by default will be acting as a savior. So in the past few months, we've been hit by concepts like demonetization, GST. So everywhere there is gloominess, everyone is very apprehensive. So I said, forget everything, just have an ice cream. So that's on a lighter note. But I think what we've been discussing so far is overall numbers on the ice cream industry in terms of the turnover and other factors. When we talk about parlors, so when it comes to parlors, it's more about the culture of eating out. So again, I'll just, so I'm also a very data-driven person, so I was just doing some number crunching as a last-minute preparation yesterday. So in Mumbai, there are around 15,000 plus places to eat out. By that I mean food and beverage. Out of that, only around 5% of them also serve ice cream. And this not necessarily mean exclusive ice cream parlors, but restaurants who also serve ice cream. So, and this has been this has seen a 15 to 20% growth over the last few years. And this is also in line with what our industry growth rate has been. So the potential is definitely there. The eventual saturation point probably would be where when a customer is going out and spending 100 rupees, we would want 20 rupees of that to come to ice creams. That slice of pie is what we are trying to aim. But apart from that, parlors are more of places to hang out, celebrate moments with your loved ones. And especially when you look at certain pockets in Bombay, Kandivali, Mahavir Nagar, for example, within 1 kilometer, there are 12 to 13 ice cream parlors.
Oh my God.
Within a 1 kilometer stretch, and most of them are always crowded. So you can see the importance ice cream as a part of their celebrations, going out and spending time with loved ones. That's becoming more important, and that is what I think all four of us and other ice cream brands out there are trying to drive, not just individual brands, but the ice cream industry as a whole.
Okay. So my perspective is slightly different, obviously, because for us, it's a combination of the FMCG product range and also the parlors. And if you look at growth drivers, I mean, obviously, you have to split it down between push and pull. But I think a lot of the answers have been pull-oriented here. So from a push perspective, the simplest answer is electricity. The biggest challenge that the ice cream industry faced is the frozen supply chain. Till many years ago, 2 years ago, electricity was a significant problem across India. Today, it's not such a big deal. Therefore, dealers are able to hold more refrigerators, more freezers, allowing availability of the product. And from a push perspective, that's critical. I mean, if you look at the growth or the advent of cellular phones, and I'm not talking about data, I'm talking about 1997, 2007 and all the way through 2002 till Edge was still, mobile internet was not a thing. The reason it grew was the availability of a recharge, right? In 1997 when Hutchison Max came to India, getting a prepaid phone was fine, but where do you go to recharge it? You have to go to the Hutch store. All of a sudden, you found Panwalas had the recharge. So there's no worry. You can recharge for 10 rupees, you'll get it somewhere. And that drives. So the availability visibility index plays a significant role. And to us, that's where the numbers are coming from. And our data shows that.
Right. Hold on. I'm going to ask you one more question. Importantly for parlors, interiors are very critical to attract customers. And also look at the real estate cost currently. So given the fact that we need very attractive, customer-friendly interiors, and given the fact that the cost of land, cost of an outlet is rising across India, because land prices are rising, do you think investment in a parlor would still continue to remain profitable, or you think that's going to become a challenge? And this is a question for all the panelists. Yeah.
Okay, well, so I'm a designer. I'm not a marketing guy. Okay. I've studied economics. I practice design, and that's what I've done for the last 17 years. So my approach to marketing is slightly different, and I don't start with the numbers. I start with the consumer. Yes, the biggest challenge that we face is real estate, and this has been a growing trend for many years. In fact, I worked with a brand called Subiksha on a project for them from, I think, about 8 years ago before they went bankrupt. And the reason that they went bankrupt was essentially real estate prices, right? You're trying to reduce margins. You're trying to deliver a simplified experience, but at competitive prices in high street locations. This is obviously going to be a big challenge. The approach to parlors and to the rollout, you have to be strategic. It's not going to be as simple as, "Acha, wo jagah acha hai, main jaake dekh leta hu, ho jayega." Location. Absolutely.
In fact, for parlors, in my opinion, there are 3 important factors: location, location, location. That's it. These are 3 important factors.
Yeah, that is the reality with retail in general, right? But I was reading the financial prospectus for Barbecue Nation. Everybody knows about it. I'm not going to comment on the quality of the food. That's not relevant for this discussion. But when you look at that financial prospectus, and it's available online, what you realize is that their location strategy is phenomenal. Like, you'll find a Barbecue Nation on the first floor, right? Because, well, who doesn't mind taking an elevator up to the first floor? This reduces your real estate prices by nearly 35%, right? That aids to your profitability. So I think that, a very important exercise with retail before you get into design is, what is your retail policy, right? If you're going to go to the first floor, are you going to be able to attract a consumer there? And then, so a real estate policy and a retail strategy is important. The second bit is design. I think that this is a personal complaint and a gripe that I have. I've worked with clients in 16 countries. India is the 3rd hardest country to work in. Every single time I go into a room and I try to explain what design really is to a client, it's very, very hard. Trust your designers. Trust them, because they know what they're doing. Design is not a function of art. Design is a function of whatever you want it to be. It could be about business profitability, things like that. So when I joined Havmor and we initiated our sort of redesign of our parlors, people walk in and they're like, "Oh, the lights are good and this and that." But I was like, "Listen, let's take a step back, right? White lights are deserved to be in only 2 places: alien spaceships and hospitals, right? They are not inviting. If you look at two parlors, one next to the other, one has white fluorescent lights. I can see that there. And one has warm white lights. Which one's going to be more inviting, right? So there's logic there. Even the luminosity of the lighting that you use over your product, that should accentuate the colors. You know, there's a lot of detail there. You can use floor for demarcation. So how are you going to aid customer journeys through design? And you know, when you balance these two out, the strategy, the retail strategy, and design strategy, that's when you'll actually get a winning solution. And for us, you know, there aren't too many of our new format parlors here in Bombay, but every single new format parlor of ours is in Delhi. And I see data, and the profitability is up by 35%.
Thank you. Any thoughts on interiors, real estate costs, and related issues? Yeah.
I think the first part of your question was how important are the interiors of a parlor. So just Mr. Afshar was saying a while back that you're not selling ice cream, you're selling happiness. So the mindset or the thinking when you are into parlor business is that you are not selling a product, but you are selling an experience. That's what we've seen across coffee chains like Starbucks. When a customer is coming to your parlor to have an ice cream, there is a chance that he's going to spend a good 15 to 20 minutes there, right? Most of the time he's going to have ice creams, but he's also going to be soaking in the environment. He's going to be chatting with friends. He's going to be sitting in comfortable positions, looking around the interiors. And it is also a very good communication touch point for your customers. So your parlors, the wall, the breaks, the sitting, they have to talk to the customer in a very subtle way so that it reinforces whatever message you want to pass on to the customer. So that's point number one. Now, this is linked to the second part of your question, like the cost of real estate, right? Now, location is very important, and the cost of real estate will be directly proportional to how prime that location is. So let's say for our brand, we have parlors which are around 100, 150 square feet, right up to 500, 600 square feet, depends upon how the rentals are and what it suits in the break-even analysis. So the design will be very different for a 150 square feet parlor compared to a 500 square feet parlor, right? You will have more lavish seating. You will probably have sofas instead of bar stools. Customers will be able to enjoy. You will have some television playing, some music or some sound. And while as a 150 square feet shop is barely able to accommodate 10 customers, by the time they're taking their cup of ice cream and they're enjoying, the other one wants to get in. So that movement or the layout of the shop has to be very critically, every inch of the space has to be utilized so that you are not overcrowding. At the same time, you are not going to block the counter or block your sales, right? So that is more important. But of course, we've seen that if the location is good, a 150 square feet parlor can have more turnover than if you have a 500 square feet parlor in an odd location.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just to add more on the location, I think it's very important to start with your consumers, your target audience, because it's very important to understand what audience you are catering to. Just to give an example, now what has happened since we are brand based out of Bombay, we don't have any stores in Linking Road, Bandra Linking Road, because for us, being present in a high street location like Bandra, yes, it's a brownie point as to show how big the brand is. But at the same time, for us, it's very important whether there's parking availability or not. Because we cater to consumers who are coming in a group in the car, where the parking also plays a very, just to give an example, parking also plays a very important role.
Part of the location strategy.
But at the same time, we also have a store in Connaught Place, where it's again, if you do a comparison to, Linking Road and Connaught Place, it's still a high street. But there, the consumers don't mind pay and park and come to your office or to your store. Like even if it's a 5-minute affair, they don't mind paying 20 rupees. So that location to location varies a lot. Right. And we have traditionally been scouting for location where they are a mix of a lot of residences as against office space, because that's where our clientele majorly comes from. Now, the main question of the interiors. We have progressed from being a product-oriented to more than, talking about the sitafals and coconut. The reason being because, here the consumers want to be associated with the brand. They want to feel connected. They want to engage with the brand. And that's how interiors play a very important role, how you engage them. So we have redesigned our outlets where we speak about stories about the brand. Now, when you talk about stories about the brand, we don't claim to be, or we don't say that we are the inventors of coconut ice cream, but rather we tell them the story how coconut ice cream came out to be. So they feel engaged, they like to spend more time, because if you convert your existing customers and you convert them to who have already come inside and let them buy again, that's the profit for us. Absolutely. So yes, interiors have been a crucial way, and we have seen that the result in the new outlets that we have
Very well.
designed.
Thank you. Sir, your thoughts?
So it's a no-brainer. Everyone's given their point of view, very valid points. Location has to be good. It has to be on the ground floor. You should have parking. Design should be good. They should be inviting. Aren't we forgetting the basic thing? The product. The product has to have an emotional connect. It has to be exceptional if you want to connect with your customer. The emotional connect happens on two levels. One is the product, and the second is the story. Naturals has done a great emotional connect on both grounds. That's why they've been so successful. And I think there's a lesson to be learned here. You need to have a product which is exceptional. A person should be coming to your shop to have your product. Everything else withstanding. I mean, even if your shop is in an obscure location, you should be willing to go there just because the product is so good. And the second thing is the emotional connect. You remember how many years ago you first took your girlfriend to a parlor and you had a great experience? That stays with you emotionally. Emotional connect is extremely important. Of course, I can't discount the fact that design elements and locations and interiors are important. But in my mind, the two most important elements are the product and the emotional connect which the parlor or the brand can do with the customer.
And the parlor staff, the counter boys and girls can actually help enhance the experience of...
Absolutely.
and therefore they'll need training probably in public relations.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, we are in the business of giving an experience.
Absolutely.
And it's a happy experience which the customer must have.
Correct.
The staff has to reflect that.
Yeah. I'm going to open up this discussion for a question-answer session to this very enlightened panel. But before that, I just have one last question from my side. There has been a debate between own stores and franchise. Any thoughts on own stores versus franchise? Which would be a good model? Is there anything? Would you recommend? Would you have a strong preference for one over the other, or any thoughts?
It's a $1 million question.
I know.
And I'm sure naturals will have their own twist to it.
We
have our own twist to it.
That's exactly why it's posed to you.
Absolutely. We are also running our own store, experimenting with it. Very much more successful financially and with the emotional connect compared to the franchise stores. And I reckon naturals, when I was talking to Mr. Girish, he echoed the same thing to me. The response financially and in terms of the connect which they have with the customer, with their own stores is much better. It's a no-brainer because you put in that much more passion, you put that much more effort, which probably the franchisee is not able to do. But if you're able to get a franchisee who's as passionate and as connected with the brand as you are, it's a win-win situation. And that's the way to go. And that's the way McDonald's expanded in the early part of their growth engine. They chose franchisees who are very, very passionate. Not necessarily from the food trade, but the passion had to be there.
Absolutely.
And that's the question to be asked.
Right. Well taken. Any thoughts?
Yeah. We have been traditionally, and our growth has been come from a lot of our franchise stores. Even today, we have, behind every 10 franchise stores, there's only 2 company-owned stores. It's very important to have the mix of franchise and owned stores because the biggest advantage what franchise brings in is the capital.
In the
expansion.
same city, would you recommend same city? That could be a combination?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And you are also come into an opportunity of exploring the entrepreneurial spirit of each individuals. No doubt it has its own benefit, but it also has a disadvantage compared to a company outlet, because it's very important that the entrepreneurial spirit is well within the company SOPs or the brand SOPs. And that's when I personally see as a failure that we cannot open more franchise stores, and we are concentrating on company stores because maybe we didn't have a strong audits or checklist. But again, going beyond that, it's very also important that we get to know the real market feedback, the trends that's happening, because what's happening in Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, it's different. So once you have your own presence, you get the real-time benefit even from the consumer preference to the particular flavors, and that helps us a lot. And in turn, our objective is right now is to get as much learning from wide variety of market, take that and help our franchise to grow along with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any thoughts on that?
See, the company is always going to be invested in the brand, and the franchisee is always going to be invested in his profit or his ROI, right? And there is always going to be a trade-off between how fast you want to scale up and how slowly you want to go while keeping your brand equity and your identity along with your growth path, right? So as Srinivas said, if you want to grow, at some point you need to have franchisees who have that financial as well as the operational know-how. And of course, we have franchisees from diverse backgrounds. So that's going to be very difficult for them to shift from other line of business to an ice cream line of business, which is very much customer oriented. So that training is very important. But the mix, as I think 80-20 mix, 20% company stores, 80% franchisees, or whatever that you want to have, it is very important that if you are looking to build your brand in a particular city, your top 3 or your top 5 locations are controlled by the company, because not only in terms of sales or turnover, but these points are seen as a brand building point, and probably a franchise will not be able to handle those points as effectively and efficiently as the company would be. So of course you can have franchises in some other location, but a certain key or certain strategic locations probably is where you would want your company to make the outlet.
Absolutely, point well taken.
So this is trying to sum this up in a few words is really hard, because I've spent the last 6 months working on this situation. And it might be slightly different for me than for you guys, because while most of your products are non-MRP goods, your margins are controlled much better. For a brand like Havmor, which is largely an FMCG brand, with I think our parlor network of all the FMCG brands is probably the largest. We have, I think, 270 odd parlors across the country. So for us to balance this out, the first problem is the sale of non-MRP goods versus MRP goods, right? Your 20% margin to your 40% margin. How do you balance that out? And it raises so many questions that it's impossible to define in one model. But if I were to try to find the lowest common denominator here, it is a hub and spoke model, right? You use company-owned parlors as flagships so that you can invite franchisees, right? A franchisee is only going to come to you if he or she sees potential revenue opportunities. And exactly like he said, your parlor model is, your company-owned one is about branding. The franchisee one is about revenue, right? So it's really hard to define, but it depends on which market you are in. It also depends on what the model is. So for us, we have 3 parlor formats. We have an A format, which is 150 square feet and below. We have an AB format, which is 500 square feet and above. And we have a completely other brand called Huber and Holly, which is 1,500 square feet, where the average ticket value in our Havmor parlor is 150. This is 700, right? So it really, really depends. Now the Huber and Holly model, because it's bespoke, it's about authenticity, blah, 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 and a very, very premium outlet. that's never going to be a franchise, right? So you have to find, oh, it goes back to my initial thing, which is that you can't have, there's no formula.
Right.
Like don't look for ye karna hai aur ye karna hai aur isme se result.
You need to customize it. That's important. Perfect. I think point very well taken. Very quickly, I think I have already signals from the organizers to close this session, to conclude. 2 questions.
On
Sir.
behalf of the audience who have spent a lot of money on the hotel and the transport, I want them to recover some money. So each panelist, I would like to tell them about 2 tips how to make more profits in the parlors.
Okay, all right. I think he's asking you. Yeah.
Could you, sir, please repeat the
How
question?
to
I
make
missed
more
out.
money in parlors.
How to make, give us 2-3 tips, each one of you, how to make more money so that we, all prosper.
Sir, ये आपसे question नहीं आना चाहिए था, but still answering you in very short.
This is very difficult for me to answer.
When I am running a parlor or I'm making ice creams, I don't look at making money. I do it with a passion. The money automatically comes. It's very strange.
Very good. Yes. You spread happiness and money flows back. Absolutely. Very, very true. Okay. Maybe one more question.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. One
all
from my friend Srinivas and one from Chaitanya. Chaitanya, I was just in few fortnights back, I was in Ahmedabad and I was invited by your colleague, Mr. Mathur. He said, हमने एक नया concept start किया, जाओ जाके देखो. And me and Samrat went there. And I saw one of the best interiors in the world in Huber and Holy. Really fantastic ambience. Even the crowd was beautiful. So what is this? I mean, you are running a successful brand. You are having, you're the largest chain of retail outlets in India, one of the largest. And again, you are doing something new. Will it be something like a standalone kind of parlors in each city? Or what is this concept all about? Huber and Holy, suddenly from Havmor to Huber and Holy, or Hodgepodge to Huber and Holy. What is this about?
So, like I said, I'm a designer. I don't think in numbers first. I think in impact first. And yeah, no, I'm not bad with numbers, but there is a difference in approach. And that's been what our strategy at Havmor has been. I don't know if you guys have noticed the transformation of our brand as a whole over the last 2 years. I've been very lucky to be at the helm of that. But what we've been trying to do is at retail, try to understand, there is a consumer jiske paas 10 rupees hai, and it doesn't matter what you tell him, he is going to buy the most valuable product for 10 rupees. Huber and Holly was the exact opposite of that. Huber and Holly was an opportunity to say, listen, this is the best version that ice cream can be. And it was never designed to be a store. It was never designed to be a parlor. It was designed to be, and I don't even want to use the cliched word experience. It was never designed to be anything that. It was designed to be a canvas for people to examine anything and make that space anything you want it to be. So, the consumption patterns, the toppings, everything. It was about being fresh. It was about being handmade. It is absolutely delicious. One of the things that Mr. Chona told me when I joined the company, he said, I don't want to make an ice cream which I cannot feed my grandchild. And this is the approach to that store. So there is a no compromise approach. And, at our normal stores, we sell a scoop for what, 55 bucks? This one, it's 179 bucks. So this was never meant to be a store jiske paas 10 rupees. It was just meant to be, we make damn good ice creams. And, Sir pointed out that, it's an emotional experience, right? I love making my product. I just want to make it as amazing as possible. You know what? If you like it, come try it. If you don't, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But this is just our best foot forward. And yeah, we will be expanding it. We will be taking it to other markets. Incidentally, anybody in Hyderabad, the next couple of months, we should be launching our store there. So come by. And if you're in Ahmedabad, give me a shout or give Mr. Mathur a shout. We'd love to take you around. And the last point I want to make is that when we launched this store, Ankit, Gayatri, me, we spent the first 3 months behind the counter. every evening, right? Ankit is the managing director of quite a large ice cream company, but it was us. This is our store. It was meant to be about us. So, yeah, slightly different, but you have to figure out what the approach is.
All right.
The
Thanks.
second question from Srinivas. Just
Okay. All right.
2 more minutes. Srinivas, something similar I want to ask you. Recently, I observed that you have totally changed your interiors. When we see them in Delhi, in Greater Kailash, or in CP, or maybe in Jaipur, what I saw, because I get all the updates from you guys. So beautiful and totally different branding. I understand time has changed. आप उसी हिसाब से उसको change करते हैं. But क्या ये also ऐसा भी होता है कि कंज्यूमर के दिमाग में आप एक नई तरह की इमेज क्रिएट करना चाहते हैं ना, कि उनको लगे कि अब हम एक 21st सेंचुरी के एक मॉडर्न ज़माने में आ गए हैं, या व्हाट इज दिस ऑल अबाउट फ्रॉम दिस टू दैट?
See, frankly, we never designed it to be called as its beautiful outlet. It's incidental that we are getting compliments. Like it's a beautiful chain, beautiful design. Like I said earlier, what we wanted to tell in our, in our outlets, or what we want to communicate was our story, what Naturals stood for. That was the one reason the rebranding of Naturals happened, because we felt down the line like because with natural ice cream and every third other brand coming in that space of being natural, so we have positioned ourselves very differently. So we wanted, of course, the environment, the store interiors to blend with the originality concept that we are now redesign and working on. And that was a result of that exercise. It's just incidental that people are finding it beautiful, or they're getting, because they're not used to see a ice cream parlor of 2,000 square feet in Connaught Place, where even a regular restaurant with the higher margins are surviving. So it's taking them by surprise, and that's the reason that wow factor is coming in. And of course, the strategy will change from time to time, as well as like in Bombay, we don't need to come up with extravagant outlets or big outlets, or we have a simple interior, but we'll be touching our consumers where we can, like especially the experience or the emotional factor. Yeah, thank you.
All right, friends, very reluctantly, we need to bring this session to a conclusion. A number of take-home messages. The first and most critical take-home message is that this market has been expanding over the last 5 years and is poised to expand more rapidly in the coming years. I think that's the biggest message which is available. Obviously, this is an industry which actually markets happiness. Like I think, if I recall correctly, it is a Coca-Cola advertisement which says open happiness. For I think it is something you need to unwrap happiness as far as ice cream is concerned. And obviously the industry needs to start looking at improving its systems, improving its infrastructure, and of course investing more and more in product and in the markets. I think with this, I want to thank each one of the panelists for sharing their thoughts and views. Give them a big round of applause. And I'll close here by saying good luck and God bless you all. Thank you.
Now we have a pleasant task. Please wait, sir. Mr. Chaitanya. I'll request the chairman of the session to give away the mementos to our panelists. Yeah. First to Mr. Chaitanya Rele, VP, Head Marketing, Havmor Ice Cream. No, yeah. Yeah, it's safe. It's safe, sir. Safe. Yeah, yes. Okay. To Mr. Anuvrat Pabrai. Yeah. To Mr. Srinivas Kamath. And to Mr. Kiran Shah. I'll request Mr. Sudhir Shah to present a memento to our chairman of the session. Thank you very much. Friends, this session 1 ends over here.